Hey everybody, Adam here with Sports Capitalist coming at you with our Saturday divisional round breakdown for the NFL playoffs. Danger and I decided not to do a joint video this week. Instead, I will be doing the breakdown of the Saturday games. Danger's going to take the Sunday games. He wanted to do that because he's a Rams fan. More power to him. It must be nice to have a team in the playoffs. So before we get started, as always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, click that notification button. To make sure that you get these videos as soon as they come out. In the world of daily fantasy, information is key, and I'm going to try and keep it short. The powers that be want us to keep these videos a little shorter, and I know I get a little long-winded. My wife can attest to that. So we got two games for the Saturday breakdown. The Tennessee Titans hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. That'll be at 4:30 Eastern Time, and the Green Bay Packers hosting the San Francisco 49ers. That'll be Saturday night at 8:15. I love both of these games, and I like the slates that have two or three games as opposed to just a single game slate, because I think there's a lot of opportunity to get different, especially with the amount of people on all four of these teams that are extremely fantasy relevant. So if you're somebody that's submitting a lot of lineups or a lot of different lineups, especially in like a GPP, there's a ton of opportunity to structure some really different, really cool lineups, just based on kind of which games you want to attack and kind of betting on certain teams, certain outcomes, things like that. So we're just going to jump right into it. So first we'll look at the quarterbacks. So the four starters, and we're looking at DraftKings pricing mainly today. So Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Ryan Tannehill, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Aaron Rodgers at the top there at 7,100. Again, depending on your line of thinking, you could make an argument for all four. I'm really not big on Jimmy Garoppolo this week. He did okay the last time they played Green Bay, but that was like week 3 or 4 of the season. So I'm going to bring up that game just because that's a frame of reference, but I wouldn't put a ton of stock into it because it was very early in the season. It was in San Francisco. The game this weekend is in Green Bay. So I'm just going to bring it up. You can take it for what you will. I wouldn't put a ton of stock into it, but Jimmy Garoppolo did okay that time. But, after what we saw last week, even a game that they won, and I was really big on Jimmy Garoppolo last week, I don't see the upside there, especially compared to what the upside is of some of these other quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers had a solid game against San Francisco last time, 23 fantasy points, but, so it's up to you if you want to pay that price. They are favored by a little bit more than the Titans are against the Bengals. And we've talked about how San Francisco's defense, they're hit or miss. They're a little bit of a paper tiger. So I think both games have a good chance to go over. Rodgers I think is a safe play for sure. But I could see a scenario where he doesn't quite pay off that price. I'm really big on Joe Burrow this week. The Titans defense, even though they're the 1 seed, the Titans defense is it's bad. It's, in my opinion, not good enough to make a deep run into the playoffs. I think they got lucky by getting the 1 seed and getting the week off. So I think they have a good shot this week to win, but it's just not quite a championship winning defense. And so, it's going to go one of two ways, because if you think that if you want to buy into that, then Joe Burrow is your guy at 6,600. Joe Burrow is a great play this week. I would certainly be heavier on him in GPPs if I'm playing against the rest of the field. But if you also kind of buy into the narrative that maybe, okay, Cincinnati got their first playoff win in my lifetime, and they're kind of ripe for disappointment, then maybe you don't want to play Joe Burrow in that case. So, but I really like him this week. I think regardless of whether or not the Bengals win or lose, I think Joe Burrow has a chance to be the highest producing quarterback on the day. So I like him just a little bit better than I like Aaron Rodgers, just based on price point and what I see as potential upside. And I like the matchup a lot better. Ryan Tannehill's an interesting one. I probably wouldn't play him in cash, but I would certainly give him a look in GPP at 5,800. Recently he's not been very good, but we've seen what Ryan Tannehill can do when Derrick Henry is back in the offense, and we'll talk about Derrick Henry here in a moment, but he's coming back this week, and that opens up the offense a ton. So I would certainly give Ryan Tannehill a serious look if you're trying to make some GPP lineups and try and get different somewhere. I think he's a great value given what we've seen, what he can do with Derrick Henry in that offense, and they're going against the Bengals defense, which isn't that great, as we all know. So moving on to the running backs, so we'll just jump right back into Derrick Henry. I love Derrick Henry as a GPP play this week. It might be hard to fit Derrick Henry into a lineup given some of the receiver prices that we're going to see here. And I don't know how safe I would consider him for cash. But, he's coming off of an injury, right? A foot injury. But that foot injury, which was, pretty much season ending, he played a full quarter on it and still got like 16 fantasy points in that quarter with a season-ending foot injury. He's not human. So he still has the upside, regardless of if you think like maybe they split some of the work and ease him back in. The guy is a freak of nature. I love Derrick Henry's upside this week. I am not scared at all to play him in GPPs and maybe go overweight on him, especially, I think he'll be under-owned for two reasons. One, he's coming off of that injury, right? People have that question mark around him. And then two, there's some crazy wide receiver pricing this week that might make it hard to fit Derrick Henry into a lineup. But I love him so much this week. So that's what I'm going to say about Derrick Henry. The other guys, I think it's kind of as advertised. Aaron Jones at 68, Joe Mixon at 66, Elijah Mitchell at 58. I don't think none of those three guys, I don't think have I don't think their upside is any higher than like I would consider them in like a previous week, right? Like Joe Mixon had that run where he was scoring 2 touchdowns a week. Maybe that happens this week. Aaron Jones had a solid game against San Francisco last time. And Elijah Mitchell going against Green Bay's defense, which isn't super hot. So I think in terms of those, it's hard for me to kind of place one over the other. I think they're all appropriately priced. I don't, none of them are screaming to me like this guy's going to have a huge game like Derrick Henry does. So it's almost a pick your poison. If you forced me to rank them, I would probably go Mixon, Jones, Elijah Mitchell. That's probably how I would rank them at this point. The other kind of value guys, I'll just bring up Donta Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard just because of Derrick Henry's injury. If you believe that they're still going to get some work, even with Derrick Henry back in the lineup, then I don't hate giving Donta Foreman a look at 52, but even then, I think I'd probably rather pay up and grab Elijah Mitchell and bank on Derrick Henry instead. Do want to bring up Kyle Juszczyk, only 4,100. So if you need a salary relief guy, he's involved in the offense enough that he could potentially get you there. He'll grab a couple receptions. He's only scored 2 touchdowns on the year. One of them was against Green Bay earlier this year. So take that for what you will. So I like Juszczyk as a value play if you need a guy on the running back side to kind of give you some salary relief. Maybe playing 2 of those running backs and him as a flex to give you some salary relief for the wide receivers. So jumping into the wide receivers, Devontae Adams at the top at 85, and seeing him, Deebo Samuel's at 76, Jamar Chase at 71. I think it's going to be hard to fit Derrick Henry into your lineup if you want to play any of those guys. And these guys I would almost rather play in cash over Derrick Henry just because of that question mark. But again, don't sit on Derrick Henry's upside this week. Devontae Adams had a monster game against San Francisco earlier this year, so I would completely understand if you felt safer playing Devontae Adams over Derrick Henry. I think he is safer. I also think Deebo Samuel is a safer play. With almost the upside, although going against Green Bay this week, not as sure. But and then I'm really leaning more towards the Titans and Bengals game in terms of attacking. I love all of the Bengals wide receiver options. So Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd at 47. T. Higgins is at 57. I really like all of those guys. I think all of them can be involved in the offense to the point where they're fantasy relevant and they pay off their price. So even if you wanted to go elsewhere and didn't want to play Jamar Chase, I love T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd this week. Tyler Boyd, probably my favorite value wide receiver. He's only 4,700. There's another guy that I'll touch on here in just a moment, but I really like him. A.J. Brown at 6,200 I think is a steal. I think that's a big misprice. I think he's got the upside to really to pay off his price. Now, I don't know if he'll be a little over-owned because of the pricing of the other wide receivers, and he's only 6,200, so I don't quite know how that's going to affect his roster percentage. He's kind of in a weird spot there, but I really do like his price. So if you are paying up, at the running backs or at the quarterback position, I do like his upside at 62 if you maybe can't quite get to some of these other top guys. One other guy that I do want to touch on, Nick Westbrook-Inke. He is effectively kind of a slot wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. He's been very involved in the offense as of late. I don't know if he loses any opportunity with Derrick Henry in the lineup. I can't imagine that he does. And had a real solid game against Houston in the last game of the season. So he's involved in the offense enough that I like him as sort of a punt play at 3,800. If you really need a guy to give you some salary relief, he's a guy that you can certainly look to, and I think he can get you there. Now, if you're structuring your lineup, you're in that last spot, and you can afford like Tyler Boyd at 4,700, I'd rather play him. But if you really kind of need that salary relief, he's a really good guy to keep an eye on. Westbrook at 3,800. So moving on to the tight ends. So we kind of got the obvious one and then some of the not obvious ones. So George Kittle's at the top at 5,300. He was disappointing last week, so we'll start there. I was really big on him. I was big on the whole 49ers offense last week, and it just didn't quite work out for Jimmy G and Kittle. It did for Debo and Elijah Mitchell and those guys, but I think Kittle would be a GPP play, and I only say that, you would think that's obvious because he's easily the best tight end on the slate, but I only say that because his price is still going to make it difficult when you look at the pricing of the other running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks on the slate. So I think he'll actually be a little under-owned because I just don't think people are going to structure lineups and be able to afford him and stay comfortable with it. So if you want to take those kind of pump plays on like a Tyler Boyd and a Westbrook so that you can afford Kittle with some other top options, I don't mind that at all. Going down the list, CJ Uzomah, he's a low floor, high ceiling, really high ceiling kind of guy. I mean, we've seen games where he breaks out just insane performances out of nowhere, like in the fourth quarter. So I like Uzomah at 3,400, and I also really like Ferkser at 3,100. Again, he's involved enough in the offense. Derrick Henry opens things up that I think the teams have to respect both the pass and the run now for the Tennessee offense as long as Derrick Henry's on the field. So I like Ferkser and Uzomah if you're kind of punting at the tight end position. I think Uzomah's for sure got some more upside if that makes a difference. So if you can afford that extra $300, I would pay up for Uzomah if you're kind of in that range. But Kittle, if you're structuring a lineup and somehow you're able to afford Kittle at 5,300, because that's a good price for George Kittle. But again, just with all of the running backs, wide receivers, all those crazy pricings that we're seeing there, you might get to that point and realize you still can't afford George Kittle. But if you can get him at 5,300 while you're structuring your lineup, then by all means take him. Because he's easily the best one on the slate. The only one that's close to touching his upside would be Uzomah. And then on the defensive side, it's almost a pick your poison. Both of these games, the over-under is around 47. both of those games I could for sure see going over. So it's almost a pick your poison. I think the one I probably like the least is the Bengals defense at 2,700. I think the Titans they play better at home, and so it's just something about that Nashville air. It's going to be a really cold day, it seems like, at least for Tennessee standards. So I do like the Titans defense. If you want to buy into the narrative that Derrick Henry isn't 100% back yet, then the Bengals defense I think is a fine play there too. But Tennessee's defense is probably my favorite play just because they're only 2,900. They're at home. They're going against a team that historically doesn't have much playoff success, even though, again, I really like Joe Burrow. So, but again, we talked about it in our collaboration with The Edge in last week's videos where, sometimes you have to do those negative correlations in these, 2 to 3 game slates like that where maybe you think Joe Burrow has a big game and you want to play him, but all it takes is for Tennessee to maybe get a pick six or a punt return, and boom, they're right there with some of the other defenses because all the other games went over. So so I know that's a little conflicting, really liking Joe Burrow and also the Tennessee Titans defense, but I think that's kind of just the nature of these 2 to 3 game slates that we've been seeing lately. The Packers 49ers, I might be changing my mind a little bit. I don't know that I'm liking the Packers defense at 3,200. I'd almost rather play San Francisco's at 25 if you're making me choose between the two of them, or Tennessee and Cincinnati. I don't know. The Packers, they're at home, they're at Lambeau, they get a little bit of a bump there, but just with their price and everything, I think they're all close enough that you can just look to try and save as much money as you can on the defensive side. So I don't hate the 49ers at 2,500. Really like the Titans at 29, and that's where we'll leave off with the defense. So just to wrap up, Danger and I normally do this where we give you a quick pick for the spread and the over-under. It's just going to be me by myself here. So the Tennessee Titans are, again, hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. The Titans are 3.5-point home favorites. I think they cover that. The over-under right now is 47.5. I think that goes over. The Green Bay Packers are 5.5-point home favorites to the San Francisco 49ers. I think I like the 49ers to cover. So I'll take the 49ers plus 5.5 there. And then I think that game goes over as well. The over-under is 46.5. So just a couple quick picks for there. Be sure to join our Discord so you can get all of our final rankings and everything before kickoff on the weekends. Football season's wrapping up, but Danger and I will be doing stuff, throughout the off season, and we got other sports on there currently: NBA, MLB, college basketball. I'll be doing NASCAR here because that's starting up the week after the Super Bowl, so you'll see a little bit more of me there. So, and then Danger's Sunday video will be coming out here shortly after mine as well. So. Everybody, thank you for watching. Good luck this weekend. If you have any of these teams still in the playoffs, good luck to your team, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.